see that in the space industry as well. When do we humans get to Kardashev Type 1 civilization status? And when do we get to a Kardashev Type 2?
So the Kardashev scale, Kardashev type 1 civilization is when humans are either catching or generating as much power as what's incident on the Earth from the sun. Type 2 is the next big one where you're catching as much energy from all the way around the sun. So massive amounts of energy. And a lot of times people talk about it as incident, as in you had solar panels the size of the entire planet blocking all of the sun. But I think really you should be thinking about it as what can we generate? What can we make here on Earth? And what we know is that we're only a fraction right now of Kardashev type 1, and we got some work to do. And there's not a lot of technologies that can get there, just from the point of view of the fuel.
Okay.
But if, as some research say, that there's 100 million to 1 billion years of fusion fuel on the Earth, we have room to go. And that's at today's use. So 100 times today's use, we still have tons of fuel. Let's go do it. And what does that unlock? What does it unlock to have power 100 times the output that we actually do here on Earth right now? And I think that's pretty transformational. Do we have those huge AI data centers? Do we have brains that can now think at rapid speeds and now innovate? I think that's a pretty powerful future.
Yeah, I could just imagine a giant AI brain and rockets just constantly shipping more and more humans out into space, into colonizing space, and we're expanding out into the universe. I mean, obviously, there's a lot to be concerned about. It's technology in itself is always a double-edged sword.
Mm-hmm.
There's always a concern that we humans, in the power we create, will also destroy ourselves in obvious ways and less than obvious ways. I've been spending a lot of time in nature, and you become distinctly aware that there's something truly special about the simplicity, the balance that is achieved by nature, and in some sense we disturb that balance by creating sophisticated technologies. But in another sense, we're building something in the spirit of nature that's more and more beautiful and allows us humans to flourish in richer and richer ways. So, double-edged sword.
I think a lot about what does vast amounts of low-cost energy, low-cost electricity enable, and how does that work with nature? And if you have power, and this is why one of the reasons we love fusion is that's energy dense. So a 50 megawatt facility, we believe, fits in a 27,000 square foot building on the order of an acre for 50 megawatts. And compare that to solar would be 2,000 acres, at least in Seattle. And what you can do there is transformational. And a lot of folks talk about desalination and clean water so that we can be in places where there's not a lot of water and those things. I actually think about food, ironically, is that how much of the Earth's surface that used to be nature is now farmland. And we need it. Like we're going to grow food because humans need to eat. And that's really critical. But it's about 5 feet tall all over the Earth. Why can't you do it at 500 feet? Why can't you build a building where you're actually growing in the building, you're growing plants? I spend a lot of time thinking about growing plants, ironically, at high densities of food densities so that we can eat and we can exist and we can coexist in a way that's energy dense and rich. You mentioned actually going to space. How do we go to space now? We take methane fuels or hydrogen fuels, and we burn them and we launch a rocket. There's all kinds of cool beamed rocket technologies that I looked at early in my career where you can like beam microwaves. And so you have a microwave craft that doesn't have to burn any fuel. And so if you have really dense, really good power on Earth, you can beam it to that microwave craft. It can now use electricity as its rocket fuel. And so there's some really powerful, interesting things you can do. Even deep space, it gets also more enabling, but even just launching from Earth. And so I think it opens up things we don't really even think about that have just been theorized. Wow, if I had a massive amounts of power in a small place that is low cost, this is what it could do. But I'm excited by what it can unlock that even we can think about now, but even what we can't think about. or we don't know yet.
Since you mentioned propulsion, is there some interesting possible use of nuclear fusion in propulsion, whether it's getting off of Earth or in going into deep space?
I mean, that's honestly, in a lot of ways, that's how I got into fusion, is thinking about that intersection of energy and space travel. And when you are in the solar system uh, around Earth's orbit, collecting the sun's energy makes a lot of sense. And it's there, it's free. When you're in space, you get a lot more of it because the atmosphere is not blocking it. And so that's why spacecraft run on solar panels. But if you want to go further out, the sun's irradiance falls off as r squared, radius squared, and it's a long way out there. It doesn't take very long before there is not a lot of energy anywhere from the sun. And so you have to bring it with you. And in space, mass is expensive. Mass is hard. That's the rocket equation. And so being able to bring high energy density fuel is really exciting. And that's what fusion enables. But here's one of the challenges. If you make electricity from fusion using a steam cycle, you now need to have you need something cool. So you get hot water, you have to be able to cool it. And in space, there's nothing to cool. There's no working fluid to cool off of. And so actually a lot of the steam-based systems that in fusion don't make sense for space. And so that's where some of this direct energy, this energy efficiency matters. It actually comes to some of the origin story of the team that founded Helion. Before spinning off Helion to focus only on fusion, we worked on a mix of things: advanced materials, rocket propulsion, fusion, fusion rockets, fusion materials, all of those things.
Nice.
And one thing that people in the aerospace field know, especially if you're in deep space, is you can't waste anything. That every watt of electricity you make, you better use because it was expensive to get it, or the solar panel. Every joule of heat, every watt of heat you make, you have to reject with a radiator, and it's super expensive and heavy. And so you build in space as efficient as possible. You recirculate your water and your air and all of those things. You're efficient, and it's something we brought into thinking about fusion. Energy efficiency is that you want to. If my goal is to make the product, what's the product? The product is electricity. Don't waste any of it. Recover every watt you can by recovering electricity directly. Recover every electricity from the fusion process as efficiently as you can. And you end up with, just like in space, systems that are smaller, have higher performance, and can deliver more, whatever the mission is. And in our case, the mission is electricity.
When you look out there at the stars, I'm really confused by what's going on because I think there is for sure thousands, if not millions, of advanced alien civilizations out there. I'm really confused why we have not, in a definitive way, met any of them. So again, continuing the pothead questions, what energy source do you think they're using? If what I'm saying is true, that there is alien civilizations out there, do you think it's like pretty certain that they, in order to expand out into the cosmos, they would be using nuclear fusion?
It's hard to imagine anything else. That right now, where does energy in the universe come from? And it comes from fusion. It comes from stars, and we know that that's the process. And so whether they're harnessing the star itself, Kardashev Type 2, or are they bringing fusion along because they want to go somewhere and they're bringing it with them to go visit? I think that's pretty likely. You bring up the Fermi paradox.
Mm-hmm.
How come we don't see alien civilizations, even if it's infinitesimally small chance that there is life on any one planet, and infinitesimally small that life grows into intelligent life? There are, however, almost infinite planets around infinite stars in our galaxy that have been around for vastly longer than we've been around, but we don't see it. And I think that's a question that many scientists and everyone has wrestled with over the years.
I mean, I'm very scared by the implications of that. The scary thing is that, to the point that we made earlier, as we become more and more technologically advanced, we end up destroying ourselves. Like, there could be things we unlock, like nuclear weapons, but plus. Like new things that happen as you develop super advanced systems that close to 100% probability uh, destroy ourselves, destroy any intelligent being. The kind of intelligent being that's ambitious enough to keep innovating will eventually destroy itself, will be one explanation. And that's scary. And that should be a sobering, that's at least an inspiring, sobering thought, to be careful with the stuff we create. But I also just looking at humans. We create dangerous stuff and then figure out, like, sometimes almost like last minute, how to not destroy ourselves. We're good with deadlines.
We're good with deadlines. I
And we're
love it.
good at like surviving. I mean, life as we know it on Earth seems to find a way. And intelligent life as we know it, human life, seems to find a way. We do a lot of painful things along the way, but in the end, we somehow survive. It's interesting. There's something in the human spirit that allows us to survive. So I have like a lot of optimism about the super powerful technologies that we create will eventually lead to us still surviving for thousands of years. But then, like, why the aliens not here though? So maybe it's also possible that it's really difficult to traverse space. Maybe it really is that difficult. The physics makes it not easy. There's a lot of space, and it's just hard to travel.
I think as I have gone further and further in building fusion systems that work, I've become more optimistic around the Fermi paradox specifically. And there's several of them. I think you're referring to something called the Great Filter. Something happens that filters out life. The dark forest is another philosophy around, sure, it's out there, but everybody's hiding because they don't want to be noticed. But I think about something else, actually. The philosophy that I've always loved, and I'm going to pronounce this wrong, so I apologize, Matryoshka brains, is that, and that's Kardashev level 2, that civilizations get so advanced and they focus not on expanding physically and expanding in space and expanding their reach by planting flags in new places, but grow their cognition, grow their ability to think. They grow their brain, they grow their intellect. And I feel like in the last few years, we've seen a massive trend that maybe this is the thing that happens, and that we do grow our intellect and we grow the intellect of the species by AI and advanced tools. And as a society, can just get smart enough that we don't need to go plant those flags everywhere. And so the Matryoshka brain is a Dyson sphere where a civilization has covered the entire sun in essentially solar panels or collects its light in some way and uses all of that power to power intelligence, to power computers, and to power brains. And I think we're a ways away from that, but maybe AI and fusion together gets you actually along that path sooner. And I'm excited by that outcome of the Fermi paradox. And then at that point, those civilizations have a star that you can't find anymore because it's all covered, and are there thinking and growing their intellects rather than actually having to physically expand.
Yeah, exploring and expanding in the realm of cognition and consciousness versus in the realm of space and time. As we 21st century colonizer humans think like. Maybe 22nd century humans will be thinking fundamentally differently. Yeah, that's a beautiful, beautiful vision of the future. Speaking of beauty, you've been doing a lot of really interesting things in a lot of interesting disciplines. What to you is a ridiculous question? Is the most beautiful idea in physics and nuclear engineering, in nuclear fusion and power plants? What ideas you just step back and are in awe of?
I'm continuously in awe that it works.
Yeah.
And I know that that sounds a little silly to say. Um, but the more that I learned in my career around the balance of exactly the right temperatures where life works, exactly the right balance between the electromagnetic force and the strong force, those are things that it's hard to imagine are accidental. And um and so we talk about how beautiful nature is, but then you look at what each of the leaves on the tree really is, and each of the cells, and each of the atoms, and each of this quantum substructure of that atom. And I'm all amazed that all the pieces come together.
We humans are somehow able to find that perfect balance where it just works.
Just works. Last minute sometimes, but it does work.
The kind of deadlines you're operating, the group of brilliant people that you're working with are operating under is just it stresses me out, but it excites me. So I'm deeply grateful that you're doing this work. You're one of the people building an exciting future. So thank you for doing that, and thank you so much for talking today.
Thank you very much. It's been fun.